Streaming.
Mhm.
So I'm digging in my ear while we're live.
What's going on? What's going on, everyone? Those that are tuning in late to this video.
Yep.
Welcome to another segment of the Love Language.
Yeah. Go ahead. Keep it going. Keep
And
it
we
going.
ready as we are. Today's topic is what's love got to do with it?
Yeah.
What's love got to do?
There you go.
Remember that song?
Hey, I was in the studio when they was recording the thing. That's how old I am.
Oh wow.
Yeah, funny. Funny.
that could have went a whole nother way.
Mm.
But you see, I'm not gonna make those jokes.
Child, please.
So the details of today. Hold on. What's going on, Chief Zabulan More?
Try to wave at him. He coming in. You can keep talking, Shimano.
I'm going to read it. It says, according to a 2010 Pew Research Center Study, 93% of married people say love is a very important reason to get married. But how true is that? Is love solely expressed through emotions? What other factors should be considered when entering into a covenant? That's key. And how much weight does love truly hold in ensuring a lasting bond? That's key too. I like that. I don't know if people caught it through reading it, but we're gonna definitely talk about it today and hit those points. So,
Yes, sir. No.
any opening statements in regards to that, people?
Yeah, whoever wanted to go first, I'm gonna mute myself. But if Zebulon or Isaiah, you want to jump in for me?
Okay, shalom. I'm gonna kind of bow out for a second. Let y'all, cause I'm
Yeah.
Just
as you can see, I was trying to get myself together, whatever. So I want to just kind
Okay.
of catch up on a second. I'll
Okay.
come behind y'all.
Okay.
I'll kick it off there. I'll kick it off. I think this is a very important topic because we see, and we spoke on this in previous shows. We spoke on this in our previous platform, online platform or radio platform. I want to say, sorry. I think that's what everybody is aiming towards, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, depending on how you look at it. And even if you look at it in a sense to where I'm not about to express, it's still nothing wrong with it. It's subjectively your decision to look at it in that light. But I think by us looking at it in a Western point of view, that's where a lot of failure comes from. All of these movies, these love movies that we desire to be or mimic, um, it hurts us because it doesn't give enough information as to how this love was obtained or what kind of love this was. So it's like we're only looking at that aspect and we're leaving all the different midpoints as to what needs to be done or dealt with or worked on in order to achieve this Hollywood love. That's one thing I wanted to speak on. The other side of it is the things that helps to solidify this love, this picture that we see. The foundations. These things aren't really spoke on or taught, especially within our community. And that's why I think a lot of us has or continues to fail because these things are not really pushed to speak on. We're afraid to speak on it. We're afraid that our feelings will be hurt if we talk about it. We're afraid that the other person will look at us differently or not want to continue. Even if we feel we're a perfect match or a good match for these people. And when I say perfect, I'm talking about complete and sound. I'm not talking about perfect in the sense of, and brother of mine has spoke on this, so I want to give him credit. But it kind of was more so, I was thinking along those same lines. When people think of perfect, we think of flawless. And we got to get past that. When I say, man, this woman is perfect for me, or if this man says this woman is perfect for me, it's not that it's without flaw. It's just that this person is balanced, sound, and complete in a sense of a collective body. You know what I'm saying? So we have to lean towards those things. We have to figure out a way to bring that into the conversation, because if we don't bring those, then we're just trying to look towards some Hollywood love, and that's what's a lot of people failing, even within Hollywood. And that's it. That's my opening.
Yep. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I think that so this conversation is kind of like the other part of the arranged marriage conversation we had, because we had talked about like the difference between a love marriage and an arranged marriage. So I agree with you as far as I think it's important to even define or to distinguish what love is in society. So like you're saying, this whole Hollywood thing, it's similar to the English language. It's like abstract, right? Love is like, I feel some kind of way about somebody, therefore I love them, or it's an emotion. So that's the one thing. And I just want to comment on what you said, really not necessarily my own personal opinions about the topic, but just kind of adding on to it or building on what you said about, I love that, the perfection, like somebody's perfect for me, meaning they're complete, or that they are without flaws. You said, I think that's important. I think that, because I personally believe, let me go back. People say stuff like, oh, he's my better half, or, stuff like that. And I'm like, but you a whole person outside of him. And I think that makes it, that provides undue burden on your partner to then, not that they can't help you reach your goal, but they are not the source of your growth or any of that. So I think the language, like we've been talking about in a bunch of episodes, the language is messed up. So we don't even know what love is because we haven't defined it, because we think it's an emotion. And I was listening to it's a snippet of something Lauryn Hill said. It's a song called like Love Is. It's on my SoundCloud. But anyway, she did an interview where she was saying we don't know what unconditional love is. She said as soon as somebody stops stimulating you, then now you don't want to deal with them. And I'm like, that's deep. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not about we rely too heavily on it. I'm not going to discard the emotional aspect of it, because emotions are a part of our existence. Like this is random, I'm gonna say it, but my oldest son is going to a homeopathic doctor, and so we learn a lot of stuff. Who also knows she's a Hebrew. I mean, talk about the Most High connecting us, and we don't even know that we know that they know. Anyway, but she said yesterday that your skin is also your nervous system. So something like, if you say, oh, I feel some kind of way about this person, or if somebody comes to you and says something and you get goosebumps, or if you feel energy, like if you're in your house and somebody comes behind you, most of the time you can feel them coming into the room before you even physically see them. So we can't deny the emotional aspect, the spiritual aspect to our existence, but it can't stop there. And I think that's the problem, is that we limit. Yes. We too deep. Everybody's too deep and too like, oh, I'm woke. You super woke, but you don't. You super woke, but you keep falling and stumbling. So it's a big irony. But no, I just want to say to you, I love what you said about that. It's a lot. So I'm gonna mute it and yeah.
Okay. Man, y'all both touched on it exquisitely. I think y'all did a dope job. So I like the fact that you pointed out what Ms. Lauren said, as far as not being stimulated and still wanting or not wanting to be in love with someone anymore. And I'm glad we're having this topic, because it brings to question, what is love, and is it solely expressed through emotion? Is that the only way that people can see or feel it? Is that the only avenue that people can go through to make sure they're wanted on any way? I like that you added in the whole aspect of using your skin or the nervous system to kind of detail, what's happening around you. And dare I say that can be a concept of love, because it's something that we express, whether it's, through words or other portions of our body. It's all universal. It takes all of that. It's like communication. There's verbal and nonverbal communication, which is broke down to, different cues as far as dialect, tone, um, kinetic movement, and all of those things. The big words that I once knew, but I can't remember now. Um, all of those things, collectively it takes to express yourself, just with communication. And I think that's what expression of love is. It's action, it's feeling, it's emotion, it's being able to do that even when that emotion is not there. So I found it interesting that you guys touched on that. But I'm gonna go ahead and let anybody else come in, and maybe we can find some definitions or discuss, you know, what do we define love as?
And first and foremost, Shabbat Shalom, and Salakli, pardon me for the lateness. I was kind of trying to get a couple things together with my son and my daughter, and then I thought I had like 20 minutes. I was looking, I was like, okay, it's 12:40, I'm good. Then I looked up, I'm like, oh, I just saw a text from Shema. I'm like, okay, this is of the devil. I'm wilding. Like the time just just straight escaped me. Whatever. But Salaki for that. But I was thinking about what everybody was saying, and especially when Tamar kind of well, I think everybody kind of mentioned it as far as the definition of love. When we say what's love got to do with it, it's obvious that if we're asking this question, that means that somewhere down the line we've been lost in translation, that something has caused us to believe a thing, and that we believed it for so long that you don't even we consider it a given, and not even consider that, well, wait a minute, what exactly am I saying? So I was thinking about these terms, romance, and when we say that something is romanticized, and you think about where these things come from. The whole purpose, the whole point of romance is what? Like you take a woman out or whatever, you go out with a man, and what do we all do? The first thing that we do, and we spoke about this in a previous discussion, but the first thing that we do is we get dressed up. I put on my best garments.
Ow.
I put my crown on. I make sure my turban is cocked to the side a little, something, whatever. The sister, she gets all done up. She gets her hair, her hair and her nails did, whatever like that. And what are we doing? We're dressing up. We're putting on an episode. We're presenting ourselves in the best possible manner, which may not represent how we are on a day-to-day basis. Now, I'm not necessarily saying it's deception, but I'm just saying that our introduction into a courting or a relationship, we are putting on a mask. Because guess what? On a day-to-day basis, I might not have my turban on. I might just have my crown on. Or I might not have a garment on, this particular garment on. I might just be walking around in my t-shirt, my or whatever, my undershirt or whatever. And the same thing with a sister. She might not have her head wrapped to the ceiling or whatever. She might have it hanging down and just whatever. And so the idea of romance and how we've been taught this from our childhood is based on not conscious deception, but an unconscious deception, that we go into these relationships with the intent to woo each other, with the intent to give each other the impression that this is what you're going to get, but over time you're really only getting this. So the deception is immediately we're taught deception. Like when you think about what is that is that the what is that childhood not nursery rhyme, bedtime story, Cinderella. When you think about Cinderella and how that concept of a man coming along that can sweep you off your feet, get your your gold slipper or whatever slipper it was, whatever, and the whole idea of the woman being swept off her feet with very superficial presentation. I mean, the presentation is very superficial. I mean, what does the prince actually do? He dances with her at the party, at the ball. She looks at the time, she leaves, she drops a slipper, he picks up the slipper, somehow or another finds her, whatever, amongst the hundreds of homes all around the area. He finds her, slips the shoe back on, and then what happens? They fall in love, they get married, live happily ever after. But what happens after the ever after? You have now a breakdown in that relationship can't possibly last because there was nothing established to hold it, especially not love, but what we are given in that scenario, we're told what? That's how we learned love at first sight, which is insanity. Love at first sight? I mean, think about what we're saying. At first sight, I love you.
Right.
What is there to love? I don't even know what it is I'm loving. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's part of the problem. And I think Shema, he touched on it. Isaiah touched on it. Everyone touched on it, that we have to, look at these abstract concepts. And this is the reason why when you ask people about, when you ask them to define love, they give you these very, very murky definitions. And the only thing that we can say is, well, it's, well, I guess it's a feeling. And it's like, well, maybe, but there's a whole lot more. And I think that's the reason why when people become adults and they start looking at the concept of love, this is the reason why people can fall in love and out of love. Because it was never premised on anything substantial to begin with. It was all about feelings, and we know how feelings are. 1 minute you're in the spirit, like Samson. 1 minute, you wilding out, but at times the Most High Spirit moved him in the camp. So what happens in between the Spirit moving him? He's rolling with Delilah. He's over here rolling with, he's over here doing all manner of craziness. So that's what happens when you get caught in feelings. And so I think we spoke about this in a previous episode, where when you look at the example of Isaac, where he gets a wife that he's never seen before, but there were things that were already established that would make that union work. Now we can grow in love. We don't have to rely on love. We can grow in it because there are other elements that is tying us together. So even when we're not in our feelings, we still have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G elements that keeps us grounded. So when we get back into the spirit of love, all can still be well. So it goes back to the definition. What are we talking about when we say love? Romance, romanticized. And that's why when we say that these relationships are romanticized, that's exactly what it is. We're being shown witchcraft images that may not translate into real life. And that's just my opening statement.
Can I comment on that? One of the things he had said to me was, that stuck out to me was, first of all, a lot of people don't even understand the terminology romance. we got to know where that stems from, where that comes from. So that's why I like the fact that you always saying, what do you say? Shoot, I forgot how to say the word. Romanticizing? Yeah, romanticizing. Wow. About these things is something that we really look for. But what he has said about the love part, I think that the love should not be the first sought out thing. And I think that when that is the first sought out thing, or the solely sought out thing, that's when that tumbling effect happens, because it's no foundation of the things to build up upon, like he had mentioned. So I just wanted to put that out there and reiterate that, when you have, if like, I'm vibing with this individual, I see some things in common, I like her from the standpoint of, I don't know if it could be physicality too, and vice versa, him to her. Okay, that's cool. Now, what's the other things that we got to build on? Because those are the things that's going to keep us together, not the initial, the little happy-go-lucky feeling of us getting along here and there. The little happy-go-lucky feeling of like, oh man, I like his smile, I like her smile. Those things aren't going to last forever. So I love what he just said, and that's why I want to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I did anybody else want to say anything if I jump in? Or no? Go. No. All right. Yeah. So yeah. So like, and then I wasn't really shocked by that stat that you read earlier. That 93% of married people say love is a very important reason to get married, considering the divorce rate is like 49%. So obviously that ain't a good mindset. But people still believe it. So we've been talking about like having something to like start with. So what would y'all say is a good foundation to build something off of? I know somebody just talked about something, and then we can't act like these things, because I don't want anybody to feel like we're not saying that love is important, because the emotional aspect, the emotional aspect does add to the relationship, but it can't exist with that as the main thing. So anyway, so what would y'all say is some of the foundational things that people should probably focus on? And like you said, Shema, physical attraction is important. I mean, that's always like a big question, is like, can you be with somebody if you're not physically attracted to them? I mean, you kind of can. Like, I personally think people look better if they have a good personality, but I done met brothers that were super fine, and as soon as they open their mouth, I was like, oh no, stop it. So looks your insides will tarnish or add to your outside either way. So we can't act like that's not important. But once you get past that, and I think it takes a mature mind to even think long term, because maybe people are not even getting married, or maybe they're not trying to be in a relationship to be there forever too. Like, I'm watching this show, I know I'm late to the show, but Black Mirror, where it's an episode called Hang the DJ. I'm not gonna spoil it for y'all, but if any of y'all, because this is it's on this topic, I would encourage y'all to watch that episode, season 1, called Hang the DJ in Black Mirror, and it talks about this very thing about things that attract us to each other or whatever. And so I just plugged Netflix and they'd give me a check in the mail. Stat. But what are y'all thoughts about what are some of the foundational things that need to be in place outside of physical attraction and goosebumps?
Goosebumps. Oh my God.
I'll go last since I just spoke.
All right. Forgive me. I'm all over the place, but so I'm gonna jump back to Tamar's question, but kind of want to read something that I thought was interesting, and it's going to add to Zeb's point as well. It says, giving up a summary of what some people think love is. It says a feeling that goes beyond almost all sense of
Physicality.
Yeah, there we go. Physicalities. Okay. To love is one feeling such as to love is to feel such a strong feeling. Another can oh my goodness, my screen messed up on
Well, where your glasses at? Put your glasses on, man.
You know what? I need to go back to the eye doctor. Hold on, let me make this highlighted.
I can read it for you if you want me to.
Oh, that'd be excellent if you could see it better.
I can.
Oh man.
Go ahead.
Say to love is to feel such a strong feeling for another that you can understand them in a way few can. Their very existence is a gift and treasure, rather they are with you or not. That's weird. The mere thought of, I know what they meant when they said that, sorry. The mere thought of them fills you with a deep hope for both the world and yourself. Love is romanticized.
That was
Wow.
my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can go ahead and read the second half of that too. That's supposed to be feel.
Okay, you said that this is supposed to be what?
You feel.
Okay, you feel they are always there with you deep in your heart. And no matter how things end, they will never be very far from you. This feeling will never fade and will always remain with you. Love is a feeling of hope, inspiration, passion, understanding, happiness, and beauty that is truly forever.
Okay. Thank you, brother, for reading that so eloquently.
You're welcome.
So no, basically what the brother Zeb had mentioned, I could sum this all up. Romanticize is a good word. Another word that I think is equally as good as ambiguous. Yeah. I'm quite sure I spelled that word wrong, by the way. But ambiguous is exactly what love is. It can be interpreted in many different ways, and it always leaves people foggy, I think. So I wanted to state that first before. So Tamar, can you restate your question one more time?
So I was asking, if it's ambiguous, what would you add?
Exactly.
It needs to be the foundational. Like, how would you basically start your house off? If it's too, pie in the sky, or whatever, it got to be something to hold things together. So what would be the glue, I guess, in your
exactly. So
house?
Going first in this, I try to be short so everybody can get time. But I think the main thing would be finding a practical, physical aspect to express yourself in. So, for instance, we're not going to say looks because those things fade, but something concrete. If this is supposed to be something that never fades, as this definition alluded to, we have to find things that do. We talked in the past on this show about creating contracts. Somebody know the Hebrew word for it, so y'all can say it.
Isn't like ketubah?
I think it is.
Yes. Yeah. So the ideal is to get something concrete. So I think a firm foundation starts on principles, right? And then those can embellish or embrace or enhance whatever ambiguous feelings you have for that other person. So at the end of the day, when those feelings ain't there, whatever day that is, are you upset? At the end of the day, you still have that concrete feeling that is there. You still have that physical display that is there. What I would say would be, principles, foundations, those things that are not necessarily easy to talk about, but more agreed upon. I know we have various opinions on being married or being in a relationship and being friends with somebody. But at the end of the day, this is my own opinion, by the way. I feel as though starting off with that friendship and understanding where y'all agree upon, where y'all like-minded at, and understanding how to deal with disagreements is that beginning phase. And like you said, I don't think there's no such thing as love at first sight. I think there's lust at first sight.
Yeah.
I think there's a strong like at first sight, but without kind of understanding that mental connection or having a mental connection, is that really love? And then I can even throw in the fact that I don't think just because you love someone that you necessarily need to be with them in a romantic way. So like how we talked about romanticizing and how we talked about adding romance to love, I think they can also be separated. Or they can be expressed to a degree. Or if you're in a polygamous relationship or something like that, they can be expressed in multiple senses. So lessening or mooring degrees. So I know mooring get a word, so don't make that face, Tamar. Y'all can't see her face, but she's
no, actually I can. I was like, uh-oh.
No, the viewers only could see the person that's talking. But
exactly. But she's making fun. She's making fun of the fact that I'm making up words over here. But I'm gonna keep it short. I don't want to ramble. I know the brothers and Tamar, the sister, has some beautiful things to say.
Okay, that's good stuff, man. I want to just touch, I guess, briefly on and when I say briefly, I mean briefly in the Hebrew Israelite sense of brief. You know how we do. Yeah, you know how we do.
Yeah.
Long-winded mofo.
But I wanted to touch on the issue of the ambiguity, if you will, of the term of love and I guess just to show not even just love itself, but because I think it's really not the term that's the problem, as it is the application of it. I mean, just like the term righteous, we use the term righteous, and it's a good word, but depending on how it's applied, it could be a whole bunch of other things. But the funny thing about love, like, and this is actually from another conversation that I had, just matter of fact, just last night, with an old friend of mine. We were, we was just kind of out driving and just kind of conversing on, catching up, conversing on some things, busting the scriptures open, whatever. But we were talking about how the term, like how when we deal with love and how the idea that people see love and they see it in a sense of like, oh, it's not possible to have relationships or it's not possible to be in any type of close interaction with people without love. People was like, oh, you can't be in a marriage, because I was telling him about a show that we had did previously, updating him on that, and he was like, really? And I was like, yeah, you have a lot of people who believe that, you can't have, you if there's no love, that you can have no type of interaction or whatever. And he was like, wow. I was like, yeah. I said, but what's interesting about that is that when people say that, I challenge them to transfer that over to real life, because what we're saying, that's all theory. But in real life, how many times do you hear about people who go to school, get a degree, whatever the case, and then they go get this job? They hate the job, or they're not really fond of the job like that, but the job pays very good, very, very good paying job, very good benefits, whatever, but they don't like the work. They don't just like, they're like, I'm not really feeling this, whatever like that, but it does pay the bills. It does take care of this, that, and the third. And how many people will stay with that job for 25 years? Why? Because it pays the bills. It allows you to have a certain quality of life, and you move forward in it. And every day you get up, you might curse it. You might be like, I got to go get something to eat. I can get to this stinking job, whatever like that. But you're not saying that when the pay clears your account. And so what we learn in real life is that, no, you can in fact invest your life into another entity for 20, 25, 30 years, reap the benefits of it without even liking it. So the question then becomes is, well, if that is the case, how come that same zeal does not translate over to a relationship where you could say, well, yeah, I'm not really, I don't love the person yet, I just met him, whatever like that, but they're a good this, they're a good provider, they have this quality, that quality, whatever, and and as over time, I can learn to love this person. Now, people laugh at that concept. I've seen, sitcoms where they, I think it was like Martin, episode of Martin, where Pam was dating this older guy, whatever like that, and Gina was like, she was like, can you really say you love him? And she was like, no, but I can learn to love him. And, of course, the audience laughs at it. But when you think about that, all of the elements of that relationship that she mentioned about him was what? He was financially secure. He allows for he takes care of his family. He had other children from other wives. He makes sure that they are taken care of. All of these things we overlook. But these are the things that actually keeps relationships solid because they're not based on the swing of emotions. They're based on tangible things.
Right.
So when we talk about when people say, oh, you can't be in a relationship or covenant, until unless you first love that person, I say no, because the biggest covenant that you make in your life is the covenant with your employer.
That's true.
Because that's the person that you give all of your life to.
Yes.
You with them more than you are with your own spouse and children.
Right. And guess what? And you don't love it. You don't love him. You don't love the job. You don't love none of the nonsense that goes along with it. But why don't you walk away? You don't walk away because you're like, well, you look at all of the things that it does provide. Good pay, good dental, good medical, 401k, all of these other things that does what? That establishes a solid life for you and yours going forward. So you will dedicate 2 or 3 decades to this entity without even having love there. So again, the question is if we're willing to do that, how is it that does not translate over to the entity that you say you want to love, when we'll do it for an entity that actually doesn't love us? They'll work you to death, whatever like that. They don't love you, you don't love them, but you maintain that covenant with this entity. So when people say that, I'm like, nah, because it sounds good in theory, but it doesn't translate well over into real world.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, Tamar. Didn't mean to step on your toes, but we got a few people watching via Facebook Live, and shout out to Lance. He decided to chime in on what he feels about the application of love. So he said, I apply love just about everything I do, his hobbies, his joy, the people he interacts with, his goals, and his future. So that kind of touches on what you were even saying, Zev, just now, as far as the practical, the functional aspects and how love is expressed. Like how you said, she said she can learn to love him because, and those were a whole bunch of tangible things, which makes it seem to me that love, as far as its application and expression, is a lot more dealing with tangible aspects than feelings. Or maybe it might be equal and we only see, as far as outward, the tangible aspects. So I'll go ahead, Tim. I just wanted to add that in. You can go ahead.
No, that's cool. I love that. I never thought about that. It's true. We are committed to things like that. And also, you think about school, it's the same thing. Like, And I mean, like I like school, but not that much, you know what I'm saying? But I was on a path. Like I felt like at the end I was gonna get something from it. And I think that goes back to a lot of stuff we've been talking about, you know, perhaps not even really knowing what you want. You know what I'm saying? I think if you don't know what you want and you floating off feelings, then anything is bound to happen. But if you are intentional about the qualities that you're looking for, not necessarily in the person, because I feel like they gonna have a little bit of it, but y'all together is the perfection of it. You know, y'all together make the thing turn and move or whatever. So, but being intentional about that from the beginning, and also, you know, you look at marriages that have people that have been together for decades, they'll say the same thing. You know, I'm pretty sure they get on each other's nerve, and they done. I like, for example, I ain't gonna name them because whatever, but somebody I know has been married. She's probably like in her, let's see, maybe late 40s, 46, 47. And recently, I think her and her husband celebrated like 25 years of marriage. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. Y'all been together for 25 years. And she was like, you know, we almost got divorced. But something obviously was keeping them together. So I think every relationship will go through the ebbs and flows of emotion, but it has to be something that anchors you down, that is not attached to any kind of feelings. You know what I'm saying? And I think too, being patient enough to see that through. So Zebulon, when you were just talking, I was thinking about, you know, Ruth and Boaz. Like Ruth obviously was a hard worker sister. She was out there, you know what I'm saying, picking up stuff, you know, gleaning stuff for her, not only for herself, but also to feed her mother-in-law. And Boaz saw that. Like he knew her character when Mara, I can't think of her first name, but she said, don't call me this, call me Mara because I'm bitter. What's her name? Somebody help me out. What's Ruth's mama-in-law name?
Naomi.
Thank you. Yep. So when they got back, Naomi got back in town, they basically was like, oh, you're back, blah, blah. So anyway, but apparently the character followed them back, them meaning Ruth as well. Her character preceded her, so that when Boaz saw her, he saw something in her, and he was already from what I can understand, like a well-established older guy. So he's a perfect example of an older guy who was well-established, that I don't know if he had other wives or not, but he saw something in Ruth, didn't try to jump on her, holler at her, none of that stuff. But but she also saw something in him via her mother-in-law, because I mean, of course, the law is in place, marrying your next of kinsman. Y'all forgive me, because people who don't know what I'm talking about, just bear with me. I'm trying to kind of hard to explain. Okay, trying hard to explain all that. But anyway, but I think on just a surface level, not get too deep into the Bible or whatever, and the reason why things happen the way they happen, but just he's a perfect example of that. And he even said that. He said, you know, you blessed the drink, you're not even chasing these young men. You know, you rather just be. But it was something about him. And also, this is something that's always struck me about that story, is that he showed himself to be a husbandman to her before they even got together. So those foundational pieces, those things, his character preceded him, and those are just things too that you know should be, I don't say should be foundational elements of any kind of long-term something. Now, if you want to be with somebody just to go out on little dates or just hang out, that's one thing. But if you're talking about long-term love, marriage, covenant, whatever you want to call it, a covenant relationship, then those things have to be taken into account, because they gonna get on your nerves. You're gonna do something stupid. You're gonna have a bad day. You're gonna roll your eyes a little too hard, and it's gonna, you know. But going back to the foundational element, if you are in that period of time where things are strained, you can always go back to your written contract and say, yeah, but I also said that I was going to be patient, or we was going to handle conflict this way. So a lot more talking, and I feel like we always talk about that on this show, but the work that happens before you get to that point is of utmost importance. And I think that whether or not you believe in the Bible or not, because it's even people, even the contract thing, which for me is relatively new. Shema was the first person that ever kind of brought it to my attention. But even if you do a cursory search of that, people are using that in the secular world, just in dating contracts. So it's like it's more and more common. So it's just to our benefit to be clear about what we want, but to also be clear about what we have that's of value to somebody else, and not let it just be about how you making me feel, what you gonna do for me, but what are you gonna do for them? But that's a mature thought that I think gets lost in the whole, I want you to make me feel good about myself, you know? So that's
why I wanted to jump in real quick. That's why to go back to what you were saying. That is, I think, the perfect way of doing it. And remember, perfect does not mean without flaws. Perfect means sound or complete from a Hebrew perspective. I ain't talking about from no Greek perspective or no Western world perspective. I'm talking about from an ancient Near Eastern perspective. When you think of, we talked about this, but I'm gonna say it again for those that's listening that probably hasn't been with us, for a while. When you think of businesses, organizations, things of that nature, those are all relationships. In order for their relationships to succeed, they needed a couple things. Before they formed that relationship, they saw it was a commonality in between the two parties. They saw that it was a vision that both of them were desiring, and they felt best that it can thrive or flourish collectively together. So there needed to be a commonality and a vision. And I'm talking about businesses right now, which is all relationships. That's what they call the relationships, business relationship. Next, they came out with ideas together. They put it in place. This is when I first started talking to Tamar. I brought this stuff out. And this is how I saw the Torah was, or how Yah or Yod-Heh-Wah or Yod-Heh-Wah laid it out for the children of Israel. This model, this concept is what the Western world has taken their concept from, the Torah, or if you're against that, any ancient Near Eastern systems. That's what they took it from. So let me go back. So you have the commonality, you have the vision, and then you have the things that you want to put in place that you put in front, and you both talk about it. And like once y'all get that together, now you have a final agreement, which we call ketubah. Say, let me know if I'm pronouncing it proper, More, but ketubah, or a contract. Thank you. Y'all can't see, put the thumbs up for me. Within this contract, this is why businesses, for the most part, those that are successful, they thrive, because they go back to the drawing board, like Tamar was just saying. If it's some minor disagreements after the contract, wait, okay, let's go back to this. Let's see what we both agreed on. This foundation is what's going to help it to last for the most part. Will it always? Maybe not. Maybe you all come up with something and be like, hey, we just can't do it. Then y'all null and void that contract or whatever, however process y'all want to do it. But for the most part, this is what I believe we are lacking. That needs to be in place. That love, that feeling, that goosebumps, all that stuff, that's great. But a lot of the reasons we fail is because we don't stick to these outlines and these plans or these agreements that we first made. And a lot of times we don't have it written out. That is why businesses, and it's the last thing I'm saying, that's why businesses thrive. They are successful because they hold fast on the foundation of their relationship, which is not love or how they felt about this person. Oh, I believe I can thrive with this other party I'm with. That was just a spark, so to speak. The foundation was what they created together to abide by. And that's all I got.
And mind you, again, and I think I have to restate this as Tamar did. Oh, I mean, no, I don't know if it was Tamar or Brother Isaiah, that let it be clear for anybody who's watching and listening that by no means are we saying that love is not important. Because I think people will, they'll be like, and we got to be very clear on that.
We're not saying that.
Right.
Right. We're not saying that. but when it comes to like love and stuff, whatever, I kind of like, you kind of have, sometimes you have to view it like a blow pop.
The old school candy, you mean?
Yeah, the blow pop, and why do I say a blow pop? Because, as children, you knew what blow pops was about. It was like, the outside, it's nice and sweet or whatever like that. That's the love. That's the, the romanticized part. That's just, you're like, oh my God, it's so sweet. It's whatever. But what happens? You get, you know what I'm saying? You get to past the actual candy part of it. And what's at the end? The gum. The gum lasts longer. It's not as sweet as the actual lollipop part, but it lasts longer.
You are Hebrew indeed with these metaphors, idioms. I see you.
But you see what I'm saying? I mean, and a lot of times when we, when we view love and how we've been given it, in this society, they're just like regular lollipops. Once you get past all the sweet stuff, there's nothing at the end. It's nothing but a stick. You throw it away because there was nothing of substance in it. But at least with a blow pop, after you get past all the sweet stuff, you got the middle of it. You got the core, which was the gum, and that is what actually gave the blow pop substance. Now, here's another example. When I was coming up as a child and in my teens, I was real big on baseball. I was a very good baseball player. And one of the things that I used to like to do, or me and my friends, we would like to see who could hit the baseball hard enough and long enough to where it would peel the leather off the ball.
Dang.
Like that was our thing. Like we were just a bunch of power hitters just trying to just destroy everything. So, I'd have my nice black and gold Easton aluminum bat, and they would just be pitching the ball, and I'd just be cracking them, and we would just be hitting them to see who was the first one to tear the leather off. Sometimes I got it, sometimes my friends got it, but whatever. What we were trying to do was, if you get past the leather, then there was this whole mound of twine that you get to. And so then after the leather's off, now we want to hit the ball to see who can unravel the whole baseball for all their twine to come off. And once you get once the twine comes off, there's this solid round core, the cork of the ball, which is actually what gives the baseball the drive. The core is what makes the baseball propel, distance-wise. Because other than that, you're really just hitting a ball of yarn.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the core that allows the baseball to travel great distances. What we're looking at, so when you look at a baseball, the cover and the yarn, that's the love.
Wow.
But the core are the things that we're talking about, the elements that keeps the relationship going when the outer shell is no longer there. So I look at these situations and I realize, again, it has a lot to do with how we are viewing love. What are we placing love, the platform of love, what are we placing it on? And just to kind of wrap up the point, if I may, I wanted to read something from Ben Ami Ben Israel. I don't know how familiar y'all are with this book. But I highly recommend it. If any Israelite that does not have this book in their collection, they are of the devil. No, I'm just
He's stupid.
No, but it's a highly recommended book. This is a good book to give somebody who might maybe be in the Bible a little bit, but don't really know much about Israel, don't know much about. This is a very good awakening tool for people.
What's the name of it? The Black Man what?
God, the Black Man, and the Truth by Ben Ami. And he has a segment in here The chapter is called "The Love Teachings of Jesus." Now, it's but it's very misleading, because once you actually get in it, some of the stuff that he says, it ruffles feathers, but it's solid. And one of the things that he talked about was the deception of love, not the love element, but the application of it and the romanticizing of it. So if I may, I just want to just read the little portion. This is on page 156. He said, whenever you are doing what is right, it is an expression of love, or the love of God. Whenever you are doing what is wrong, it is an expression of hate, or the hate of God. People have become so adept at hiding behind the term love while carrying out the deeds of hate. Until now, they can no longer differentiate between true love and hate. We can no longer allow the cunning adversary to deceive us with this clever selection of words. We must, in the Most High's name, characterize all things according to the divine definition of God's family. So this is the example he gives. He says, if a man can come home, open a package of cigarettes that has written on the carton, sure death, positive cancer, and politely offers the pack to his wife saying, have one, honey, he is void of understanding. It does not matter what the terminology is, he hates his wife. Can't you picture her sitting there, puffing away as he states, I sure love you? Little does he know that giving her that cigarette is an expression of hate of his wife and the hate of God. It is the same with the wife who pulls out a glass and a bottle of gin, guaranteed to consume his liver and drive him to his grave, and then say, this is for you, my beloved. These two individuals are deadly enemies who are locked in a death struggle. While continuously saying they love one another, they spend the entire day killing each other or committing suicide. And the reason
That's crazy.
the reason why I brought that up, I mean, because he kind of goes into some other things with that, that might not necessarily be in the scope of this this discussion, but it's an example of how the term love and how it's been applied has become, as the brother Isaiah said, it has become so ambiguous that you can simultaneously say, I love you, while actually destroying the person, conscientiously destroying them.
Yes. Yes.
But I love you, because the term love, just like we spoke about in previous episodes, the term love has in the Western world has become just like marriage. It is a joke. It's a punchline.
Wow.
It's a punchline to a joke. It doesn't have the same veracity as it had in ancient times. And not because it's of ancient times, but because, like Shema said, we're not dealing with Hebraic understandings of love and relationships. We are dealing with romanticized Western world concepts that have there's no solid construct there. All of it is abstract and just like emotions, abstractness, it winnows in the wind. It sways however you sway. So there's never a static point to it. So this is the reason why, when you hear people, like, you never hear people romanticize generational wealth in a Hebrew family. They'll romanticize love. They'll romanticize love, but they'll never romanticize generational wealth. They'll never romanticize, the idea of starting a family and seeing, and setting up certain things that their great grandchildren will be able to benefit from. These things are boring. Why? Because you can't romanticize concrete concepts, because they are what they are. But concepts that reside in the sky, you can always romanticize them, because there's no tangible way to determine if it is in fact true or not. It's all based on feelings. So again, this is why we can continue to use the term God, the term love, and be performing all elements of hate simultaneously, because apparently love does not mean what we think it means. Either that, or we are jacking up the definitions, which of course leads to what is love in Hebrew. But that's
I want to jump in real quick. 1 minute. I want some people to think on something. Think about a man, and we said this on previous shows. Think about a man and or a woman that would constantly either A, cheat. Man, some people say, well, that that's a disorder and all that. I ain't getting into all that. But or beat their wife or their husband. But they say, I love him. I love you. I love you. That is why I believe, and the next one I end up with, I want to lay down. I'm getting to the point. I want to lay down these things, this contract, these things that we expectations. So that way, you're not keeping this or trying to keep this or working towards it. Then this is your expression of what love truly is. Or in regards to what you desire or expect, or what we come to agreement upon. So if you stay in there, I would never put my hands on you. Not just throwing that out there. And yet you done put your hands on me 3, 4, 5 times. What's your take on that? That's not love. Some will say, well, that could just be immaturity and they don't know how to handle it. They have their past examples that kind of kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? That kind of molded how they are. I can get that to a certain extent. But if that be the case, then you don't need to begin with somebody anyway. I'm just going to say that. But as far as two individuals that feel they are balanced and they want to, I think that before you tell me you love me, you got to make sure that these things that's outlined that we put in place is something that is sincerely pressed towards practicing, and also understand what love consists of. So don't tell me you love me if you tearing me down. That's not love.
Yeah, that's good. I also wanted to just exactly what you said, Shimon. I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking about like the addictiveness of love. You know what I'm saying? When you feel it, if you feel a certain kind of way, your blood is rushing to your head or whatever, and whatever, feeling all whatever. So then like we're addicted to that feeling. We're not addicted to the work, like you said, Zebulon. We're not addicted to generational wealth, because that's not cool. We're gonna sit here and write a long, we have a long 5-point plan. But anybody gonna do that? But it feels good to be touched, or to be whispered to, or to be in situations. And then the bad side of that is, to your point, Shema, is that when you get in, that's a cycle of domestic violence, where it's like, they do something to you, and then now they're apologetic, and they're like, oh, I love you, and you go right back into it. And so, not blaming the victim, because I understand people go through that. They could. It's not normal, but it happens a lot. I understand like the pull and tug between them, because in your mind, as a person, if you've been abused, you want to be loved, because that's right. That's why you're with them to begin with. So, and then because you don't have boundaries for yourself, you kind of like are at the whim of what they give you as a boundary, or what that definition is. Again, going back to us not.
That's right.
Being clear about what's okay and what's not okay. And Isaiah has said something too, because there's this is called Love Language, a Roundtable, but there's also like a book called The 5 Love Languages. I'm not sure if y'all ever read that book, but I read the one. Yeah, I read the one. The guy that did it, he did a bunch of different types of love languages, but he did one for married people, for singles, for children, or something. But basically, it's 5 points And he says everybody receives and gives love in these 5 ways. So you have one of them is like touch or something. One of them is giving gifts, blah, blah. So whether or not you agree with that is irrelevant. But the point of the book, at least the structural foundation of it, is useful because there are certain, it kind of gives people room to have a conversation with their future spouse or partner, whatever you want to call it, about how they like to be loved. Because even knowing that is important, and there are biblical truths about what love is. Going back to the abuse situation, if you love your wife or husband, you ain't gonna put your hands on them. It also says if you love your kids, kick their butt. So it's if you don't do that, then you hate the kids, something like that. So the point is that there are foundational truths. I
want to parse that too, by the way. I just want to parse it just to see. Zebulon, I don't know if you ever parsed it, but I just want to see what the attested language might say. I do that for certain things. I'm like, I want to see. It might be on point, but I just,
yeah. No,
because it might not be on point too in the English.
Right. No, I understand. Yeah, I think, but including keeping the conversation open about how you want to be treated is a way of you showing that you love somebody too. Is you allowing them to tell you how you want to be treated, especially when you think about the idea of falling in and out of love and how that can happen. Is primarily because of our the things that we've gone through. If you've gone through trauma, which is if you have jumped a gun and been in relationships where it was just purely sexual and nothing ever happened, of course you come out with trauma from those kind of relationships. So then entering into something new, it's just and to avoid the falling in and out of love again thing too, it's important to articulate and know for yourself what is and is not a sign of love, for you too. So I think that's all I'm going to say. I was kind of rambling just now. So I want to ask. So unless somebody want to ask something, I want to ask a question too.
I just wanted to just briefly say that this is the reason why, if you notice, all of our episodes, all of our discussions, they all eventually, how they say all roads lead to all love language episodes leads back to the importance of courting. No matter what we discuss, that's
Right.
going to always be, because that's the core of the blow pop.
Right.
Now we're talking about the genesis of all of our relationships going forward. So this is one of the reasons why the community that Ben Ami was leading in Demona, Israel, this is the reason why during the courting process was anywhere between 3 months and a year. And when I say courting, I mean no kissing, no hugging, and in some cases, not even holding hands. There was no physical contact whatsoever. It was simply, we are friends and we're going to interact. We're going to go out. We're going to go eat. We're going to go to a scriptural study, or we're going to go to a dance, or whatever we're going to do. But we're going to operate as individuals getting to know each other. And the reason why they extended from 90 days to 6 months to a year is that it gives time for the love to wear off. That initial, he makes me feel so, she makes me feel this way, whatever. It gives you time for it to wear off. And now once that initial, I think the brother Isaiah, what is it, the dopamine release, whatever, once all of that fades away, now you can see everything clearly. Now you can make decisions based on the fact of the matter. You've been talking to this brother or sister for over a year, and it's like, okay, the traction is there, but now it's kind of like, now you're looking at concrete things. Okay, you know what he or she is about financially. You know what he or she is about on this, on that, or whatever. Then you can say, now do you want to go and further the relationship? Now that the core has been set, now do we want to put the candy on top of the core? Do we want to put the twine and the leather on top of that core. When you deal with courting, all of these issues that we talk about that Shama brought up and all whatever, all of these things are eradicated because you've given time for these things to dissipate, for the emotions. There's an old saying by like a lot of old timers, like elderly couples, they'll say before they make a decision, they sleep on it. They go to sleep, and when they wake up, and if they still feel the same way, then they'll go and do whatever they're gonna do. But chances are, when you wake up after if you're angry at night, if you go to sleep just angry and then you wake up, you're probably like, it wasn't a big deal, whatever the case. And so the idea is you have to allow the romanticized emotions to dissipate before you can make any type of real decisions in personal relationships, business relationships, or anything. So I just wanted to just kind of interject that.
Yeah, that's good. I was thinking about like then what's the opportunity that presents itself from such toxic situations or failed whatever. So just when you fall out of love, looking at that as an opportunity for what? You know what I'm saying? So so I don't know. Like, I guess what would you suggest people learn when they do fall out of love? Like how we the concept of falling out of love, whatever that means, but how we encourage people or suggest ways for them to handle that emotion when it fails.
So I have a counter question to ask. Is this the physical aspect or the emotional aspect of love that they've fallen out of?
I think it's the emotional. Like I was saying, like Lauren Hill when she said,
Got you.
Yeah, okay.
So the in my opinion, the key would be to take your time, even put in a trial position to see if you guys can take it back to what that physical display was. Whether it's, let's go back to the basics, your love language, my love language, this is how they affect each other. Let's go back and start over. Let's take things slow and say, okay, the reason why I was able to get you to have these emotional feelings for me was because I displayed this. See if you can go back to that. If there was a contract in place, see if you guys can look at that contract and say, this is what we agreed upon originally wrote, and work it out from there. So
let me ask you a question. For example, would you mean more so like in that contract type stuff? Would you say something like, man, we need to go on dates at least once or twice a month? Like, are you talking about stuff like that too, as an example, or no?
That could be an example.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go back even further, even deeper, and say not on that, because there's circumstances that could change that, but more so when we reach a conflict, we agree to allow each other this amount of time or this amount of days to kind of self-reflect,
Right.
then begin to state your issues. So those kind of, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You know what you just said something amazing, because I had a conversation, this 20 seconds real quick conversation, and what was said to me was an individual basically was in a certain mood, and the person that they were around continued to make them beat that mood up. And she basically was like, can you just give me time? So I thought it was interesting that you just pointed it out, and I think that's what a lot of us do in relationships. We keep beating and we want to fix it right now, instead of if we had that in that contract, like you just said.
Right.
Like, give me about a day or two, or however the contract is.
Right.
Okay, go ahead. That was nice. I like that.
Even with that, you know, we even talked about that in previous shows as far as being aware enough to know that just because you're having an argument, matter of fact, Shemai, you brought this up. Just because you're having an argument with somebody doesn't mean you have to be right or wrong about your position. The
Mm-hmm.
thing is understanding what both parties' position is. So, a good example of something that's in a contract would be both parties coming to that ideal or that avenue of love as individuals, right? And then looking at that aspect of love or their union, whatever it is, as an individual. So everybody is looking to see what is the best case scenario for all parties, whether it be the individuals or the relationship itself. You know, so excuse me. So as far as how to get back or what to do when one feels like they've fallen out of that stance would be to go back to that. And if they say, okay, it's been another 3, 4 months, another year, and this still hasn't worked, then they can go ahead and kind of look and see if there's any other options that they can do. Of course, we all on this show is not proponents of divorce first. I know that's kind of what the world does, but I don't think anybody on this show is a proponent of that. But if it gets to that, the idea would be we exhausted all efforts to maintain a healthy functioning
That's
relationship.
right.
So I'm not talking about cases where there's harm to mental health or physical health. So those are different avenues. If you're just not necessarily, liking that person, or there's been a number of issues and y'all feel as though y'all can't continue forward, those are some good ideas or some things to look at.
Mm.
I'm a yield there and let y'all take a stab.
Man, I don't got nothing to say. He done. That's just my thoughts. So for me not to have that to say, he put the I mean, yeah, I don't got nothing to add to that. That was good. I think his answer was good for me too, for your question.
And also, I think too that um, the strategy to move forward or move past it should be also be like clear too, because you see, it's not funny. Come back to you see situations where assumptions can be made during that time period. So let's just say there's a couple and they falling out of love or whatever, and they try to take a time apart. Stuff can enter into that gap and then cause further division. So whatever happens, it has to be clearly articulated and monitored the whole time, because if he think one thing and you think something else, then how could y'all even really get back to where y'all was if y'all don't even agree on the rules around the separation or the timeout or whatever it's called. So, which could probably cause further harm if not explained. So
That's why too. I think you really have to find someone that is balanced in thought and agrees upon the ketubah and really sees the value in it. And what's crazy is I don't understand how people wouldn't see the value in it when they do that with everything or every aspect in regards to the world. Cars, homes, jobs, insurance, daycare, all of this stuff, contracts are involved. But you don't see the value in it with a relationship because, well, it's supposed to be just love. I've actually heard that. It shouldn't be no contract. It should be just love. but yet you have that percentage you threw out to us earlier, as far as the divorce rate. Accountability is needed. Accountability helps growth. You never know, when you all are faced into these scenarios that you pre-exposed in the beginning to one another, that being in the light of that situation in real life time is going to help you all grow, because it's going to be like, okay, now we're really faced with what we was talking about in this contract. How we execute it is going to determine our growth, or the extra needed nurturing to become or to grow in that department too. So I think that the ketubah or the I think it's very important to have that. So you got to find someone that's willing to operate in that, because if you don't, it's like a 50-50. I mean, even if you do, it could be a 50-50, but I think it's more secure because this is how everything around you is operating already.
Okay. And the important, like, again, just going back to what you said, just the importance of of a ketubah and any type of documentation in any type of business, transactions or whatever. You have to have things in writing. This is the reason why, although I'm not opposed to what they call oral tradition, but that which is written is binding, because now nobody can argue it. Now it's not like, well, I said, well, no, I don't remember you saying that. I don't recall. Like, no, it's no, we have it in writing. It's right here.
That's right.
Now you can't argue the book.
Right.
You can argue oral, situations, but when something is in writing and it's already been signed and sealed by all parties involved, the covenant has been struck. And so now you have to be held to it. And it kind of, again, just going back to the issue of, the topic of, love and, is it necessary, in relationships. It's I think we got to remember, I think a lot of the difficulty that we face in these issues is because of lack of community. And I mean community in its totality, not just isolated, camps or congregations and whatever, but an actual environment that builds these platforms up. So when we talk about striking, writing a ketubah and striking up covenants with each other about, this is what I'm expecting from you, this is what you're expecting from me. The reason why you saw a spike in the popularity of the writing of a ketubah after the Babylonian captivity is because having interaction with the nations, people began to realize that you can actually dance your way out of covenants. And they're like, you know what? You know how people are. They try to find some type of loophole in the system, and that's when our wise ancient fathers and mothers, they were like, no, this has to be written down, because clearly no one is respecting and acknowledging their word.
That's right.
When people talk about, and I think this is one of the most underrated scripts in the what they refer to as the New Testament, when they talk about making covenants, and when Yeshua said, hey, like, don't swear by nothing. Don't swear by the temple. Let your yea mean yea and your nay mean yea. I mean, your yea mean yea and your nay mean yea. And the reason why that's important, and although, again, like we spoke about before, he's speaking of best case scenario here, is that he's like, listen, we should not have to, in a perfect world, we should not have to write down our agreements, because your word should be bond. If you utter something out of your mouth, it should be, that's law.
Right.
If you say, hey, Zebulon, A, B, C, and D. I shouldn't even have to see anything in writing. I should be like, yeah, no doubt, I Torah, and keep it moving. Or, yeah, no doubt, sis, shalom, keep it moving. I don't have to think back on whether or not you're going to honor that. Why? Because there were certain Hebraic ethics that were already laid out for us. And you shall not lie. So there's reason. So if you utter something and then don't make it come to fruition, there were consequences. But of course, after the Babylonian captivity, it got to the point where, well, if you broke an agreement, it's not that big of a deal. Where's the proof? I mean, where's the paperwork?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, like I said, our ancestors were like, okay, because we're dealing in a very wicked time now, whatever like that. Let's get this ketubah situation right. This is the reason why you don't see the ketubah in the Tanakh for marriage.
Right, that's a good point, yeah.
Because the understanding was like, this is a covenant. Like, I don't have to write it down. You're a man, I'm a woman. We are the children of the Most High. Why do we have to? Like, you ever ran into somebody having a conversation with someone on a subject, and they just kept saying, yo, I'm telling you, that's my word. Yo, I ain't lying, yo, that's my word. You're like, why do you keep saying that?
Right.
You sound the real New York right there.
You know how we do, son. You know what I'm saying? You know how we do, son, do it. So, but that's what I'm saying. You ever, when you hear people do that, it's because, now we have to put so much emphasis in proving our word. And in ancient times, we didn't have to do all of that. Why? Because if you broke a covenant, you could lose your life.
Mm.
When Abraham struck a covenant with the people of the land for the cave of Machpelah, there was an understanding that, okay, yeah, we're gonna do what we do, and they struck a covenant right there, and the understanding was that, hey, this is your word. You have why? Because Abraham was a man of honor. He dealt with other people who were men and women of honor. So when they struck a covenant, they could, they could take an animal, make a sacrifice right there on a stone or whatever the case. You can name the stone whatever you want to name it, but I'm going to name it this in Hebrew, and we can keep it moving, and we don't have to think twice about who's going to break it, because you broke a covenant, you could lose your life in ancient times. But there's no repercussions for breaking agreements now. Now, you can break a marriage, and it's like, whatever.
On to the next.
Exactly. On to the next. So, again, going back to community, in ancient times, there was no question as to whether this woman had to do any type of in-depth research into this brother as far as, okay, what does he do for a living? Is he able to do this? Is he able to provide this, whatever? Why? Because the community has already been monitoring these young boys' growth, these young women's growth. They're being raised in communities that have already instilled these principles in them. So by the time they're 18, they're ready to go. Let's get this marriage. We're ready. Why? Because we've been watching them being cultivated in these concepts. So you did not have to question whether or not this sister is about her business. Is this sister a Proverbs 31 woman? No, Proverbs 31 was a given. That's just what these sisters do. They get busy. Sisters didn't have to go and, oh, well, what is this brother? I don't know. It's like, no, because I know that brother's father is Chief so-and-so. Oh, yeah, his father is Abraham ben Terach. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, we already know Isaac is that guy. Okay, no doubt. We don't have to bust our heads over that. You know what I'm saying? We already know, because we know his father. We know his pedigree. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Raquel. I mean, not Raquel, with Rebecca. The pedigree. Oh, I already know the manner of woman that she's. I know her family. Her family is about that business. Yeah, go ahead, slap that veil on her face, bring her on down, because she's good money.
So let me jump in and ask you this question, but I want you to continue to speak though, because you're speaking on something heavy right now. The time so different. The community, the lack of community is so different. So when you have today where father's not present due to social injustices and or social conditioning, as well as with the women. How do we rectify or reconcile that with this? Is what we're speaking on right now? What's love got to do with it? Is that helping? Would you all say what we're trying to speak on now will help us get back to that point? I know you spoke on the courting, especially for those that's really not balanced and really solid in what they want. Courting is very what needed in our community. I had to do the eyes like that. But anyway, do you think what we're speaking on now can help us get back to what you just brought out?
There is no question about it. And I'm not saying that as, you know, I have the answer and that's just what it is. But I think that history has shown us.
Mm-hmm.
And history, when we say, oh, the times have changed, we say that, because it's an old saying that we just say constantly. It's a swift thing to say, but
True.
In reality, times do not change ethics. People change the times. Time is just time. It's just a passage of events. That's all time really is. It's just a passage of events, of a chronology. It is people. It is either people's action or inaction on situations that alters the ethics. And then as time goes on, that alteration becomes the norm. So that's why we're 20, 30 years after something, we look back and say, man, time to change. Like, what happened, man? Back in the days, we used to do this. Now we're doing this. Time didn't do that.
Right.
People's inaction or actions changed the platform of the ethics. And now we're faced with these changing circumstances. And sometimes we try to we'll throw it on the issue of time, but we have done these things. But now to go back to your question about, how these things actually, how do they help? I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence that the rise if you look at the late 60s, early 70s, when you saw the beginning stages of the breakdown of the so-called black family, when projects began to be built up, all of these things began to change in the late 60s, early 70s, and the breakdown of the family starts. I don't think it's a coincidence that at that same time you saw a huge spike in Hebrew Israelite camps and congregations. Prior to the 70s, there were congregations, but there might be 3 or 4, let's say, in New York City. You had commandment keepers. You had what was it called? The Moorish Zionist temple in Brooklyn back in the late 1800s. There was only you had B'nai Abraham with Rabbi Ford in Harlem. There was only about 4, maybe 5 congregations in all of New York City. So they weren't. You had to go out of your way to get to these congregations. But once the 70s came in, and the rise of, and I'm not shamelessly plugging my pedigree, but the rise of Beni Zakim, in the late 60s, early 70s, now you have camps all over the place. They're all over Chicago. They're all over New York. They're all over Jersey. They're everywhere, to the point where the 70s and the 80s comes in, you can't go anywhere without seeing turbans and fringes.
Mm-hmm.
They're all over the place. And what I believe, and I'm not saying this is a fact, but what I believe, part of the reason for that is because our immediate forefathers, those who came before us in this truth, they saw the breakdown of the families. They saw the men who were, who came back from these crazy wars, who were doped up and jacked up and couldn't get work, and the sisters who were working to hold the families down. They've been beaten and downtrodden by all of this labor of pulling the families together. There's this rupture. There's this rupture in the continuity of family. So now these men, they're disappearing. They're either drugged out, they go into prison, they're disappearing. Women are disappearing. All of this is happening And what these Hebrew Israelite camps and congregations provided was the same thing that the original churches were supposed to provide, but got lost in religiosity, and that was they provided a safe haven. They provided a safe haven for the women. They provided a safe haven for the men. So now the women and men who are coming into these camp congregations, they are now being given communal interactions, communal type of love, communal, helping them get jobs, helping them feed their children. A lot of people don't even realize that the Black Panther Party, when they were feeding the homeless and doing all of this stuff like that, the Huey Newton and them, they got that from Benny Zakim, who were already doing that in 1949 and in the early 50s.
Mm.
This was already, Hebrews were already doing this stuff. And the Black Panthers, they adopted it. They just didn't want to adopt the spiritual element of it. They didn't really care too much about the Tanakh and all of that stuff like that, but they embraced what these early camps were doing. We were like going around and feeding our communities and clothing our communities and setting up situations where the women can get provisions for their children when their husbands might be off at war or wherever the situation was. All of these things were already being done, and it was the idea of cultivating community. And that's why these camps and congregations raised up at that time period to kind of like swoop in and provide what was now lacking. And I think that is part of the solution, is that we have to get back to the importance of camp congregations. And regardless of what your camp congregation affiliation may be, whether you IOG, IUIC, Shema Yisrael, GOCC, whatever your congregation is, congregation, camp, whatever, we have to get back to not just providing doctrinal help, because that's beautiful too. That's obviously, we need that. But we have to get back to cultivating relationships. We have to get back to arranged marriages where all four of us, we know each other and we're in the same congregation.
Right.
All of our children should know each other.
Right.
I want to do that, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. I want to do that. Y'all have no idea.
Right. We should know each other. You know what I'm saying? They should know each other. They should be playing with each other. They should be attending, Tanakh studies with each other. They should be attending Arts of Abraham studies, which is martial arts for the Hebrew Israelites. The Arts of Abraham studies. They should be doing all of these things together so that they're being raised up together with a certain ethic. So then when they become adults, why do they have to go out amongst the people of the land to find companionship when they can go amongst B'nai Israel, who they've been raised up all their life with? Like, oh yeah, do that. Yeah, we used to play when we were children, but yes, sis, we got to start talking. We got to start courting, or whatever the case, and we can move forward. But it's all about community, and not just a physical community, but there has to be a mind community, a mentality that cultivates coming together, not just coming together because we agree, but coming together because we can see way down the road, and we know that what's at the end of the road is more important than our disagreement here.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's down the road, whatever the case. This is the difference between playing chess and checkers.
So what you're saying is, too, another reason of the what's love. I'm tying it back to the what's love got to do with the part. We ignore the bigger picture and replace it with the temporary feeling.
Right. That's a good connection.
Now the temporary feeling can be long lasting. I'm talking about years down the line, but that temporary feeling is just a feel good every once in a while. But we replace the bigger picture with that, is what it seems like. Chief Moreh Zebulon is speaking on, and I think it's accurate. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's a fact, but based upon the studies I've done with the percentages within our community, I wouldn't say it's too far away from it.
Okay.
So we need to look at the bigger picture.
And even if we don't listen, because I know there's some probably people who don't, say I don't deal with camp stuff, whatever. Okay, fine. You don't have to deal with camp stuff. Just look at from a secular standpoint. Think about how your grandparents and your great-grandparents were, how when they didn't have a whole lot, but they emphasized community. Think about how many of our brothers and sisters, just say 100 years ago, education, they had all types of trades, they built communities. They didn't become successful and say, okay, I'm up now, let me go out here and leave. No, they continued to build their communities. Black Wall Street wasn't an isolated situation. That wasn't isolated. It was just it was the most populated and the most financially lucrative center. But Black Wall Streets were already happening all over the country, wherever Black people were. Why? Because segregation was a great thing at that time. Why? Because it said, oh, you don't want us over there? Fine, we don't want to be over there. We'll build it here. We don't need you. And so they emphasized the importance of the community. Rosewood, the movie Rosewood was a perfect example. Like, you white folk, yeah, you can stay over there on the other side of the tracks. We're over here, and we are building this up. We have our own school. The school teacher is part of the family. The music teacher is part of the family. The brick masons and the iron masons, all of these individuals are all part of the community, and we are building it up. That's the mentality that we have to go back to. So even if we don't want to see it from a scriptural standpoint, we can just look at history. History showed that during quote unquote segregation, Black folk in this country enjoyed the absolute best times as far as not only financially, but just being autonomous and independent. It was only during integration when all of the signals got mixed up, and part of those signals being mixed up included love. What is love?
So I have a question.
Wait, real quick. I'm sorry, Isaiah. What's that movie with one of y'all tell me? With Denzel Washington, when he was talking to his son, and his son said, "You don't love me."
John Q.
No, not that movie, man.
Fences?
It was another. Go ahead, Zebulon. You look like you got it. He told him.
Fences?
I think so. He was like,
Fences.
He said, "You don't love me," but then he had went in and, like, you know.
I love that movie. Yeah, he went in about all the things he did for him.
That was a play at first too.
Yeah, that movie was off the chain though.
Yeah.
Check that out. But go ahead. I didn't see it. I just saw that one part. But go ahead.
Yeah, that part. Actually, I talked to a friend about that a few times, as far as dealing with children and the aspect of what is love for them, because as they're growing and building individuality and everything, they may think that, you know, as a parent, certain things are required of you, and that might not necessarily always be the case, you know. But that's another topic for another time. Maybe discuss a show about it. But I wanted to ask a question, since Zeb brought out some aspects of dealing with our grandparents and looking at, you know, times in the past where, you know, there was a more stronger connection to dark and melanin community. I'm sorry, something strange just happened over here. Dark and melanin community. And I wanted to ask, what is the difference and what is the correlation between our great-grandparents, and in some cases grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, their aspect of relationships and marriages, both good and bad, and what's happening nowadays? Because although we have to do, you know, reality and duality, although there was a stronger sense of community, there was also a strong sense of moral detachment. I can even bring my family into question here and speak about how I believe it was my grandmother's grandfather or something like that, had two sets of families that lived within the same city. Matter of fact, on the same block. You know what I mean? So maybe, I know we touched on it on many episodes ago, before we went video. But maybe we can quickly hit on that again, because and if all of y'all could take a stab on it, that'd be cool. But because I see some good qualities as far as people staying together and longevity, but it wouldn't be a love language roundtable conversation if we didn't talk about the duality and the mental health aspect, because not all relationships end up positive. And some people, that old saying, don't get divorced, stick with them, ride it out for the kids, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And people wind up getting hurt, serious and bad. So what's y'all opinion on everything I just said?
You mean as far as like just marriage? I thought this is not what Zebulon was talking about. I thought what Zebulon was talking about, like the importance of community. So are we not talking about that no more? We talk about
Yeah, I mean, well, community in a sense, but expressed through the aspect of relationships, because the community aspect back then was cool, but to a degree there was a lot of underlying issues. So and we have a lot of underlying issues today, which create different scenarios where we see divorce rates, or people not staying together, or people have this I don't want to say delusional, but people have this ideal of what love should be, and it's not expressed in any of those ways. And the way we talked about it on this show thus far has been there's some components missing. So if I can restate the question, what was the difference between that time period and this time?
I got you.
And what was the good and bad between both?
Right, I got you. Yeah, okay. So yeah, okay, I understand. I think, like, I agree with Zebulon. I think that we've been taught to separate, and then even the concept of we was reading it earlier. The whole it's better to be single and all that other stuff, like that's not Genesis. You know what I'm saying? So I just feel like all that stuff is stuff that we've learned. I don't necessarily think we learned it in this captivity, because who knows? I wasn't around in Babylon. I don't know what they was teaching. But that whole go for yourself, be independent is killing us. The mindset is killing us, so that it's not even, I'm not saying it's not possible, but I think if you was to tell somebody, all y'all need to do is come together and be a people, like, they'll be like, what you talking about? I don't even like this N-word. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think we're stuck in a divisive mindset, whether we believe in a book or not, and we don't have trust of each other. And I think the benefit of our recent elders is that at least they understood community, even in our lifetime, right? My grandma, well, that's probably a bad example, but that's a bad example. Anyway, but you think about how like when I was coming up, how the neighborhoods were. I'll just put it like that. Like I grew up in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I never ever felt unsafe. Well, yeah, I never felt unsafe in Chicago, because people say, oh, Chicago, and I'm like, no, because when I was coming up, across the street, we lived in an apartment building at one time. Across the street was my brother's, like, one of his good friends, and we would be back and forth to their house. And I remember a distinct memory of, like, we was watching Thriller when it first came out, and me had under the table, because I was all like, oh my God, what's gonna happen next? But I was over this person's house. My father wasn't nowhere around. He was a single parent. He wasn't nowhere around, and we was over there, I feel like, all the time in their house. So that was even some sense of community even back then that has slowly eroded, and I even think that it's possible to do, but I feel like the benefit of our recent ancestors or elders is that they at least understood the importance of being among each other. And I think that, like, where I live now, I kind of see that that's more of a mindset. So the community is. So where I live now, I live in a town right outside of, it's like basically like East Cleveland. So it's right outside of Cleveland, but it's a suburb. But it's an all-black suburb, and interestingly enough, on paper, before I moved up here, on paper, it was like, don't go there. When you look at reviews of certain towns, they'd be like, oh no, it's a horrible school system and blah, blah. But I feel more safe here than I ever felt when I was living out Baltimore. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I know my neighbor, most people that live around me are older too. I think the energy of the community is of course, the most high, but it's the energy is that it's older people around here, so they feel maybe they're more rooted, or maybe they're just passing their energy to us. But I don't never feel unsafe around here. My kids can, be outside. I ain't gotta worry about them. And the schools they go to, they are constantly calling the house with recorded things, but about, they do like a food giveaway every Wednesday. So it's possible for us to do that, but we have to want to do it. And I think that everything starts with your own particular household, because I can't make somebody from another class or from another background feel comfortable around me, because I didn't come from that same class. Like, there's so many other issues. And so I think if we start that community within our households and then teach it to our children, like, and emphasize them the importance of having that, like, that's all we can really do. But I think it's possible, and we should honor the elders and what they did, and stop trying to keep going forward. We need to turn back. We keep going. At some point, you gotta stop and turn around, and especially when you see everything crumbling around you. So it's just a good one. Yeah, I don't want to keep rambling, but that's my thought on that.
I think for me, I think that segregation was the best thing for us back then. I think integration was the worst thing for us now. We could have still, I'm not saying don't do commerce. We were still able to do commerce with outside influences in the ancient Near Eastern, in the ancient world, the Tanakh world. But the Black Wall Street world, I have to do a little more research, but from what I remember, Zebulon might know a little, well, I'm pretty sure you know a little bit more than me on that. I don't even know if we didn't integrate for at least what, like 100 transactions of our sales before we allowed it to go outside of our community. So I think that segregation is probably the answer even today if we could do it. But don't nobody want to do it because they're so happy of the integration. And that can be from relationships, all of that stuff, we got so many filthy rich people in our community, but won't pour back in due to lack of, or due to ignorance, or due to not caring. But it's still, when I'm trying to tie it back to the what's love got to do with it though. I kind of went out because we started talking about what's our grandparents, the question that Isaiah said, what would I pick to keep and get and put away? I will keep the segregation, because the segregation would help more so with the community building, the man and woman building, and the outside influences would not affect us as much as it has today. And we will not fail as much as we have. And the reason I can say that with surety is because, and you all know I read something by, I forgot his name, I don't have it with me, but it was in 1898, and he said what he needed to do he was telling them what we should do to these people that were taken from Africa. Break their belief system, their educational system, their home, all of these things. Huh?
Are you talking about Willie Lynch?
No, not the Willie Lynch letter. The other one I read by Lord something. I'll bring it up, but I read it to y'all over the show, and that's why I said I can say it with surety, not just a opinion, that this was actually all planned to do. They wanted us not to be segregated away from us. They wanted us to integrate with them, but at a low capacity so we cannot thrive. So I would want to get back segregated. I know it might sound, hey man, did he fall asleep over there?
well, it is the shop opera.
That man was
right.
Hey, but that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, and just to kind of go again with the brother Isaiah was posing, and being that we were already talking about romanticizing. I definitely didn't want to romanticize what was going on in the early 1900s with our great grandparents to make it seem like all was well and everybody was skipping through the meadow.
Right.
Because sometimes we do that. Because sometimes because the times that we live in, well, not the times, because the circumstances that we live in are so horrendous today that it's very easy to look back and just be like, oh, it was just so great back then. Like, no, it had its issues. I mean, it was, whatever. But I think what not only what we had in those days along the lines of community, we had community, but I think what was more important is we had a shared understanding of our enemy. We understood that our enemies made it very clear who they were. And so that made unity and us coming together as a community even more vital, because we knew that if we did not protect ourselves, if we did not insulate ourselves, these other sources will come in and will destroy us. So we built these fences, literally and figuratively, in our communities to isolate ourselves from the outer world, but also isolate ourselves from within. Did we still have issues with relationships or whatever? Absolutely. I mean, look at it. Ancient Israel, even at our height in our history in ancient Israel, we still had a lot of nonsense going on. We had a lot of insanity happening. Northern Kingdom more so, but the Southern Kingdom wasn't far behind it. Like we would.
Right.
So there's no room for romanticizing, but the beautiful thing that we had in ancient times, and even just 100 years ago, that we don't have now, is we had in those times, we had a strong sense of monolithicism. And I'm going to coin that, I'm going to put that term out there, monolithicism, that we understood that no matter what platform we're coming from, there was a central platform that we all operated from. The Most High said, what? You shall have one manner of law. You and you, one. That's monolithicism. So that now if we have the same platform, the same core, no matter what you do outside of that, we can always come back to the same core platform and move forward. Today, there is no monolithicism. There's no single platform that all of our people can ever agree on. Once there is no platform to agree on, you can never influence a people to move in a direction for their best interest. Why? Because we're busy saying, well, how is it your best interest? What about my interest? Or what about his interest? Nobody understands the concept of unity in the most truest sense of the term. Why? Because again, 100 years ago, our ancestors, our recent ancestors, they understood who the enemy was. They understood what the enemy was. They understood all the things that could destroy them, and they were always on the lookout for. They were always watching. We're not watching today because, again, we're being fed all of these romanticized concepts of love, romanticized concepts of fear, these romanticized concepts of hate, all of these abstract concepts that keeps us what? Abstract.
Now, go ahead with that being said, Zebulon. We all go get some closing statements now, and there's about to be 2. So let you go ahead and finish your closing now if you have any, and then we'll go down the list of everyone.
I concede.
Good points, though, definitely, man. Did anybody want to go?
Okay. First of all, I want to say no, I wasn't asleep.
Man, I was messing with you, man.
I wasn't listening to your points. But now I would say real quick, last remark, solutions. I would say the main thing would be to home in on the things that caused you to feel those emotions again, instead of the emotions itself. You focus on what made you feel that way about that person. You can probably find it within yourself or find it within them to feel it again. As long as y'all have a healthy conversation to make sure those things are being touched on. Or if they're not, an understanding of why they aren't. So keep it short and simple. I think whatever place you were at the beginning of your relationship, to say, I really feel this way about this person. Think about the actions that accumulated that were flowing around that time period. And I'm going to yield to that.
All right. Well, for me, I let Akoti Tema or Sister Tema, my Sister Tema, end it. So I say my little piece. I think that it was a lot of things said today, even with the community aspect, even with the segregation and integration, that plays a big part as to the topic. What does love have to do with it? Because by us being integrated and getting different concepts and abstract thoughts from a Western standpoint, it is starting to help formulate a different concept that we once had on how love should be. Hopefully that was understood. Should I repeat it? But so by him bringing that up, by Zebulon bringing that up, I understood. And I'm sure the panelists did as well. But for those that might be watching later, if you were wondering, like, how do we transition from that or to that and bring it back? That's because all of that comes stemmed or was created away from what we were, from a standpoint of what we knew love to be back in the day. All of that played a part in now making us see it differently. That I believe, my opinion, but also I have some percentages to back it up, we're failing. So, like Tamar said, bring it back into your home. Teach your children. That's going to be the stepping block to bringing the community back together from the foundation of what we once knew love to be, or the bigger picture of what love to be. And if we could do that, we probably would have less failure and a long life of husband and wife. Just my thoughts. And that's it.
Yeah, I agree. And then also just to reiterate for the umpteenth time, we're not saying you can't be in love or have those emotions.
True. I'm sorry.
Right. No, I'm just saying, just because in case, I don't know.
The fact that we have to reiterate that
I know.
is troubling, actually.
I know. I know. I think that in fact, just to end it, like once you get those things resolved, I mean the foundational things resolved, you'll naturally get the love anyway. So again, just flipping the way we think about things, the way we go about relationships, will probably yield the fruit that you want anyway. But we got to learn how to pause. Talk to people around you, which is the community aspect. There's people around you that may or may not be married, or they divorced or been married, or wherever stage they are. You can learn from anybody. You can learn from the elements too. So being open-minded with that, and just stop being lazy with stuff. We kind of just flow with stuff, and we don't really think about it, and then we end up in situations where we're all, like Shabbat said, collectively failing. So. That is Love Language Roundtable for this week. Most High willing, we'll be back next week, 12 Central Time, 1 Eastern, with another topic. Like us on Love Language Roundtable. It's on Facebook. We also have a YouTube page, the same thing. Check out some of our past episodes. If you ever want to be a panelist, let us know. We're happy to have more voices on here. So anyway, until then, shalom, shalom.
And more women.
Yes.
Shalom,
yes.
shalom. Yes, balance it out.
Yeah.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.